I'm Tyler Pellegrini, Analyze Restoration Ecologist, and here we're at Lost Flora Fen today. So as you can see by the sign, Lost Flora Fen was acquired in February of 2018. It's just under 40 acres, and it was purchased using funds from the Illinois Clean Energy Community Foundation and NLI member donation money and funds provided from the Kramer Trust in honor of Stephen and Veronica Kramer. This is a really cool place. It has some remnant sedge meadow, high plant diversity, animal diversity, and we're going to take you around and hopefully find some cool things. The property extends over my right shoulder in a long rectangle going behind me to the Raccoon Creek back here, and then extends to my left to the south past those trees, and with some really high quality sedge meadow here and beyond. You can probably hear the cows in the background. So the farmer that owns the neighboring property still has some grazing here. As you can see, this part is grazed and the cows are eating everything except the multiflora rose. So Lost Flora Fen, they have some really cool species that haven't been around, haven't been spotted since, some of them since the 1870s, I think 1860s, 1870s. So this property was found, and a whole bunch of plants that were documented by Michael S. Bebb back in the 1860s were documented for the first time in decades, which is part of its namesake. So these plants were assumed to be lost, extirpated, and were found. I haven't gotten these nailed down, but we've got a rush here, so break one off. You can tell a rush, genus Juncus, by the round stem. And then we've got a sedge here, and if you look at the stem, it's a triangle stem there. So okay. Lost Flora Fen has 30 different species of sedges, about 363 species of plants altogether inventoried in 2017-2018. Part of the funding for Lost Flora Fen was some public access and public viewing of the property. So here is a pretty long boardwalk that runs through one of the most high quality parts of the fen, and some really cool plants on either side. So the bone set here, this will come up with a nice white flower. Bottlebrush sedge, there's a whole lot of that here. And now we're getting into the tussock sedge. If you look that way, you can see the difference in the vegetation. So right here we've got Phlox maculata. You can see back here, you might see it as meadow phlox or wild sweet William. And this is a pretty uncommon one. There are many other phlox that grow in prairies, drier prairies. This is a really cool one that you'll see in a fen type setting. It's taller. Most phlox grow really short, but this one here, you can see it's able to stick up above this tall, massive sedge. So this is one of the lost plants of Lost Flora Fen, and this is one of those plants that was not seen in a long time and was found here. Here we got dark green bulrush here. Bottlebrush. I'm gonna stick my hand behind that. This is a nice one. Yeah, bottlebrush here. Here's some of the stricta, Carex stricta, tussock sedge. And so if we weren't on this nice boardwalk, these tussocks down here would be like walking through a mogul field on a ski hill. Pretty tough walking. Blue joint grass, and then down below are tussock sedge again, Carex stricta, and these grow kind of hand in hand in a fen setting like this. Back here looks like we've got blue fruited dogwood that's flowering, and if you kind of zoom out you can see it really likes to take over if it's not subject to fire or other management. Our pelicans. So speaking of birds, we've got so far 38 species of birds have been recorded as being sighted, at least flying over Lost Flora Fen here. The bobolinks have been seen here We've seen some snipe flying around, really cool bird. So we got the leaves from marsh marigold, which is one of the early bloomers in wetland areas like this. Really beautiful yellow flowers. And they're all gone now, but they'll be back next spring. So we planted some swamp rose here, all up and down both edges of this little stream. Part of the improvement of the habitat here. Seed was collected at NLI, or at Nigran Wetland, and then they were propagated in the greenhouse last year. Yeah, they grew, I think, hundreds. The volunteers planted a bunch at Nigran last year. So we've got some blue-fruited dogwood here, this white flower, and as we talked about earlier, as you can see, they really grow up. When this property was grazed, the cows kept the brush back, which is one of the good things, that it didn't just turn into a brushy mess. But now that we've pulled the cows off, the plan is to keep fire through it, keep the brush back, and then probably cut some by hand. Dark green bulrush. And then you can kind of see the brush. Some of this, like here, was top killed when we burned it. And you can kind of see sporadically along here, especially you've got the top killed part of the shrub here, but some new growth coming up. So part of the management here is burning on an interval and trying to knock back this brush, and then if it's too much to handle, we'll be cutting and treating stumps. So we've got a species of willow here. Several species of willow grow here, and a few of them are fine. They grow in moderation like this. We do have a species, the sandbar willow, that really takes over, kind of like these dogwoods that we looked at earlier, and that's a species that we'll have to manage for overgrowth. Right here we've got the leaves of sensitive fern, and then we've got the leaf of a dock here. It might just be great water dock that's kind of short. Joe Pye weed, and not on this property, but on another property. This was kind of the host plant for the rusty patch bumblebee. Here's a fern that we haven't seen before. We don't know what it is, but we can ID it. So here we've got a meadow rue, I believe, Thalictrum daisy-carpum, one of the ones that grows in wetter areas like this. Little white flower and these pretty identifiable leaves. I believe it's purple meadow rue, Thalictrum daisy-carpum. So swamp milkweed is growing here. You can see last year's growth still kind of hanging around. And if you zoom out, you can kind of see this is a really nice big field of it here. Kind of see behind me this vast area of just sedges here, surrounded by kind of ridges all around the edge, and Raccoon Creek to the east. And this geologically is kind of a basin washed out by some of the last glacial activity, and it filled in with peat. It's fed by springs, and that's makes it one of the really unique parts of this property. And the kind of the chemistry in the water and soil is what allows these unique plants to grow here and not everywhere else. So these are crawdad holes here that they dig, and then kind of see they're pretty big and open, and the endangered Heinz emerald dragonfly will use these to overwinter. So here we've got this piece of plywood that a whole bunch of these were set out this spring, and these are used to monitor mainly snakes, but you might find amphibians or other animals under there. A lot of vole and mouse remains of their little burrows, but essentially they get put out, they get left for a while, and then on an interval we'll come over and flip them. And here we've got a garter snake right here. He wants to bite me. We haven't seen a green snake yet, mostly garter snakes out here, but I believe a northern water snake was seen, not under a snake board. He's pretty mad. Yeah. He's going to scurry off. Pedicularis lanceolata, I believe, but it's swamp betony and one of the hemiparasitic plants that are pretty unique in prairies and wet prairies. So here we've got red stem bulrush, and just a couple individuals here, but in a few other parts of the property they'll grow into really large patches. So here's a little native hail spike lobelia, Lobelia spicata, and related to cardinal flower and great blue lobelia. Obviously those are much larger plants. So now you can see this area all around us here behind me, really short vegetation, a lot of grasses, a lot of non-native plants, and the management here is this will be hayed off by the farmer that has those cows that we heard earlier in the video. You can see our high quality fen off to my left, and then off to the right, on the other side of this hay field is another high quality sedge meadow. Beyond that is Raccoon Creek. So the management here is a couple more years of haying this off, and then hopefully we'll be able to suppress those non-natives and plant this into a nicer, drier prairie. So this is one of the penstemons that we have. It's not the hairy penstemon. It could be a short digitalis. Yeah, being out here, everything is really short. So we have 30 different species of sedges here, like this one. And pretty soon we'll be able to collect some seed from these, which we'll use to improve some other natural areas. Prairie cordgrass, one of the native prairie grasses found in wet areas. Mint here, still really green, not blooming yet, but if you break off part of the plant and crush it up, it smells really strongly like mint. It's a really good smell. This will get a little white flower. Here we're looking at Raccoon Creek, and in northern Illinois, Raccoon Creek is one of the highest quality streams up here. In this part of the creek, we've got really high quality habitat, wetlands, and little sloughs and backwaters all throughout this area. This is running southbound, and it runs through this area here. There's hundreds of acres north of me of wetland reserve program, protected area, a lot of habitat for birds and wildlife. And then further south, this runs through Nigrin wetland, another really big protected area. And from the north where it starts, it's fed by springs, and there are even some really high quality habitat along the stream banks up there that support a brown trout population as well. So NLI has a Raccoon Creek protection plan, and we're trying to protect as much area here and keep the quality of the water as high as we can. So just a little about myself. I started out working as a mechanic, my first career, and kind of grew bored of that. I joined the Air Force and served 4 years, and then I got out and started going to school, not really with an idea of what I wanted to do, but my first spring break I went on a volunteer work trip with the Forest Service in Georgia and really experienced what you can do in this field. So that combined with just my lifelong interest of being outside and working with plants and animals really inspired me to pursue a degree in natural resources, and ended up lucking out with some really good jobs, and now with NLI, which has been awesome. I grew up hunting and fishing, and just even while hunting and fishing, I just liked being outside and being in, you can hear the birds all around us, and probably Raccoon Creek babbling in the background. So that really is just always made me really peaceful and happy. So outside of this job, I'm a volunteer EMT and firefighter with my little hometown, Creston, Illinois. And I've been married for a few years, and my wife Jamie and I have a 1-year-old daughter named Hadley, and she'd be out here in my backpack if she could. Here's one of our silphiums, a cup plant, and so called because you can see the base of the leaves here are a little cup that fill with water. Oh, yep. Looks like Canada anemone. We've got Ohio spiderwort, Tradescandia ohioensis. And it's got these really nice tri-lobed flowers. And you can see there's little tiny bees all over it. Maybe you can't see. There's one. But this plant has these little seed or flower heads, and has a whole bunch of them. They'll bloom, close, and then by the end of the blooming time, you'll have a big clump here. And one of the cool things too is you'll get this nice purple juice that comes off them. And this will end up with little tiny black seed in these little pods. Here's a St. John's wort, spotted St. John's wort. So in the background behind me, we just saw eastern meadowlark. We had a whole bunch of butterflies here. Lost Flora Fen is home to at least 31 species of Lepidoptera. And earlier we took a photo of a Baltimore checker spot. I don't see any good examples right here, but they're one of the really important species that are out here in abundance. Lost Flora Fen's got 24 species of Odonata, dragonflies and damselflies, including the Heinz emerald dragonfly, endangered, which is what makes this property so important to keep in high quality and restore neighboring properties so we can keep that population going. So here's a remnant bur oak savanna. You can see these nice, somewhat open-grown oaks behind me. And this is a remnant piece that was never really disturbed and growing on the edge of the fen here. So as you can see, it's really brushed in. This needs a lot of work to remove this brush and give these oaks a chance to regenerate and not choke them out. And then we'll get higher quality plants in the understory once this brush is gone. So here's one of our native thistles to Illinois, swamp thistle. And our native ones, you'll know them because you can touch them, they don't hurt, they're pretty soft. And this one, Cirsium altissima, and Cirsium discolor is our other one that you'll find in drier prairies. You can see the green on top. When you flip them over, really vivid white on the bottom, and that's really characteristic of this plant. So these are good. You can see they really got just this one, and they don't take over and spread like invasive thistles such as Canada, nodding thistle. Coming back to our swamp milkweed, we've got a little tiny flower starting on there. We've got native horse nettle, really nice pink flowers. Nice little clump of them here. Not the bad nettle. So here we've got a whole bunch of soft stem bulrush. You can see this big field behind me, and kind of looks like that red stem that we saw earlier. This one though, the soft stem, is soft. You can kind of crush it, and that's kind of how it got its common name. Soft stem bulrush. So behind me is this nice grove of quaking aspen, and they're a pretty unique part of our prairie ecosystem here. They're actually one organism. So this plant, if you cut one tree and compare DNA to another tree, it'd be the same exact organism. Root is all combined, and then they will shoot up new sucker plants farther out if they have the opportunity and spread. They're a really good habitat for birds. They have more unique plants in them, and they're kind of a wetter spot. These aspen stands, kind of similar to oak savannas or oak barrens, they were kept in check by fire. So fire will kill small shrubs especially, and as you can see here, if this had fire through it, it would slowly kill off some of these and keep it from just turning into a large, huge colony similar to like an oak barren or oak savanna. So here next to this quaking aspen stand, and I've got a leaf pulled off one. You can see the base of leaf, this petiole, is flat on that side, kind of elongated here, like it's been smushed, and that's what allows it to quake in the wind like that. So Natural Land Institute was founded in actually Christmas Eve 1958 by George Fell. His father Egbert Fell was the one who first was out here and identified a bunch of these plants and wrote about them. And it's one of the oldest land trusts in the state. What we do is, what we're doing here, we try to find properties that have conservation values that can be restored and provide habitat for plants, animals, insects, and purchase and protect them and then restore their habitat. So here's our native rose, one of our native roses, pasture rose, Rosa Carolina. Really nice little pink flowers. One over here that's a little lighter pink, but they're distinguishable also, kind of like our native thistle, doesn't hurt to really touch. Our native roses here, Rosa Carolina anyways, doesn't really hurt to touch. As compared to invasive multiflora rose, you'll really know if you touch that because it's going to hurt pretty bad and rip your clothes probably. So here we've got a rare sedge, at least in this area. This is Carex echinata, star sedge, and per the inventory when this property was purchased, this was one of the rare plants that was identified. So we just happened to stumble across a little patch here. Here's our native iris, blue flag iris. Really beautiful blue flower, but it's already come and gone. And here it's little seed pods. So these will be green for a bit, they'll dry out, and they have little, almost like popcorn kernel looking seed in them. These are native. They may look a lot like the daylily that you see around, but those are not native. This is a native here. Wood lily, or Lilium philadelphicum. Really kind of a rare plant, really beautiful orange flower. Thanks for joining us today. It's been really fun showing you around Lost Flora Fen. If you want to visit, contact NLI, and this property is open for public access, but it's a little difficult to access, so you want to contact us first at Natural Land Institute. Thanks.